Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Dare to Be Great 3, Dare to Be Great 2021 virtual conference. Man, we're getting started. It has been a while, a lot of stuff promoting, all kinds of things going on. I haven't slept much, but it's okay because we're here and we're about to get started. I just wanted to jump on to thank all of you really quick for the support and everything throughout this experience of Dare to Be Great from last April to just this last fall with 1, 2, and now 3. It has been an amazing experience, and now we're going to kick off the final Dare to Be Great virtual conference. Just wanted to give some housekeeping really quick as you are joining in all. If you happen to drop off and then come back later on, it's going to take you to this first session here. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you go up to the upper left-hand corner where it says schedule. Click on the schedule and there'll be a drop down list, and then you can scroll through and go to whichever one is live at that moment, or you can catch a replay. Whichever you want to do, but that's how you will navigate through the conference. Tomorrow, you'll have multiple choices where we will have our sponsor speakers that are going to be doing their sessions, and they're all in different tiers, and they'll be going all on at the same time in different time slots. So in that one, you'll be able to choose which one you want to go back and forth from. But your support, as always, for not only us, the conference, but all of our sponsors is very important to us. We wouldn't be able to do this without our sponsors. So thank you all so very much. Also, when you are going in between sessions, like all day today, I will bring you with me to the next session, and there'll be about 15 minutes before the next one starts. Depending on the time, however, sometimes some go over, some are early, whichever. But while you're in there and you're networking with everyone, on the left-hand side is a video. Our friends at Yoga for First Responders have put together a video in partnership with us to be able to give you some poses, some stretching and breathing techniques, and everything that you can do at your chair, as you might be watching this all day. So in between those sessions, you have a chance to check that out. And again, that's from Yoga for First Responders. We thank them very much for that as well. And I think someone asked about about all of those stretches and everything. Those are going to be available later on. You can check them out on their YouTube channel, but you can also check it out on their Cyber Academy app. And if you do sign up and you use the code TRENCHES, you will get a discount as well. So make sure to check that out. Again, thank you so much, YFFR, for that. And we're about to get started here, and I am very excited. This is going to be session 1 of 47 sessions that are going to be going on over these next 4 days. It's going to be amazing. I hope you are ready. We're all ready, and it's going to be awesome. This is all for you. The pandemic shut a lot of things down, and things are starting to get back to normal, yes, but one of the biggest concerns was continuing education, and these virtual conferences definitely allowed for all of that. So again, thank you all for the job that you do each and every single day is the most vital piece of public safety. And here we go. I am here with my good friends. I have Larry Stidham, who's the VP of Sales and Marketing, and Shane Reckwig, who is the Indiana Market Manager, both of them within Digital, and they are a diamond sponsor. Thank you guys very much, and they're about to get started with this opening session of Houston. We've had a problem. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, Ricardo, and welcome everyone. Shane, glad to see your smiling face this morning. I appreciate everybody taking out some time to hop on. The Houston, we've had a problem, we thought was an appropriate title given the way the last 12 months or so have gone. Seems like we were clipping away, everything was going great, and then Houston, we've had a problem. And agencies and industry has had to scramble a little bit. So we wanted to take some time this morning and share with you some of the strategies that we have helped as in Digital, has helped agencies kind of navigate their way through this as they start to consider disaster planning. So as all of you know, there are many reasons for disaster planning. Any kind of weather emergency, we've had 911 centers that have had to relocate due to tornadoes, hurricanes and such, fire in the building, hazardous materials that have either in the building or in the community, bomb threats. Of course, we've seen civil unrest and many other things in the last 12 months. And then, of course, COVID. COVID hits kind of out of nowhere, and it was just another disaster planning that had to take place. Precautions were put in place by the government, and agencies had to try to figure out, how do we implement those precautions in our center, in our buildings? How do we clean and sanitize our center? What do we do if we have an outbreak, right, Shane? So it put a lot of pressure on 911 centers, and we started getting phone calls, started making phone calls, and started partnering up and trying to help agencies determine ways in which they could alleviate some of that pressure.
Yep.
So what we wanted to do is take some time and walk you through some of the things that agencies did, and hopefully this will be a benefit to you, and maybe gives you something to think about, and make things a little bit easier in your 911 center. InDigital has a product that we've developed called Nevo Anywhere, and most of what we're going to talk about today utilize Nevo Anywhere. Not every example use that. We'll point those out as we go through. But Nevo Anywhere is critical in this role of disaster planning. And so Nevo is really, it's a collection of a bunch of different technologies, and then they work together and they form a completely independent NG911 backup. And that's for your network call routing as well as the actual call handling system. And it's completely out of band from whatever you're using for your normal call handling. So, when you're trying to figure out, how do we get calls to the center, Nevo is a great complement to that, because it's not dependent on any other technology that's in your 911 center. So some of the key features, it'll process 911 calls and can also, in certain circumstances, do your administrative calls as well. Can reroute calls to different systems. One of these that we're going to talk about will use this single button to be able to call 911 back. The calls are delivered with Alley. You can look at call history, conference transfer, park a call. It'll log and record for instant replay, mapping interface. So it's a full functioning answering system, call handling system, and call routing system. So it's available in two different kind of configurations. In a kit, it's a hard shell Pelican case on wheels, so it's fully portable, contained in that kit. It uses 4G to grant access out to the network, or you can plug it directly into a business class internet. It's also capable of riding on FirstNet if you have that and want to use that. Because it's a standalone system, it can use a UPS power that's built into the kit, or you can plug it into direct power if you're in another building somewhere. The kit will hold up to 4 phones, but it's expandable. We can add another kit, kind of daisy chain those together. So if you need more than 4 answering positions set up, then you can do that as well. So it's generally set up for alternate, so it could be an alternate PSAP to get the 911 calls delivered. It could be a command post that gets set up off-site somewhere to be able to transfer calls back and forth, or just to set up a different kind of path of communications to the dispatchers. And it's just a standard IP phone. So a couple of configurations. You got your command vehicle. This is Mobile County, Alabama. Got a beautiful brand new vehicle just a year ago or so. And then, or on the left, you deploy the kit and you can set the phones out. You can set the phones out. We have them, some in just, like backup centers, EOCs, that type of thing, to allow for additional answering positions outside of the 911 center. So what we want to do now is just kind of walk you through some of the usage cases of how agencies have utilized Nevo and how Indigital helped them with their call routing and call answering. So Shane, why don't you talk about Bartholomew County?
Yeah, so Bartholomew County, Indiana, they set up their Nevo Anywhere kit, which they have one of those unique kits that's a 4 with a daisy chain to another kit. But they set it up in a different conference room, and they weren't receiving 911 calls on it, but they used that as to augment their operations a little bit. So they had 911 calls still coming in their 911 center, and then they had their Nevo Anywhere kit set up, and they were doing outbound calling and doing some administrative stuff on that side. And their whole idea was splitting up their dispatch center because of COVID, and so that if any one group did get it, then they could do a flip-flop, or they could have all their 911 calls routed to their Nevo Anywhere kit while they're disinfecting the other room. So that was Bartholomew County that was doing all that.
Yeah, and that setup made it very convenient for them, allowed the operations not to have any kind of hiccups at all. Just went over and started using the Nevo kit and continued to take calls, completely transparent to the community while they were able to get things clean. So very good. So next is Dubois County, Indiana.
Yeah, so in Dubois County, they actually had a scheduled maintenance event. They were actually replacing their generator, and the company that was doing it told them or advised them that they were going to lose power in the whole building, and it was going to happen in 2 different segments during the same day. So they had the scheduled power outage. So they went ahead and they got a Nevo Anywhere kit, set it up in a different building, rerouted all the 911 calls early that morning, contacted our national service center, and had all their calls rerouted. And then once that maintenance was completed, then they just moved right back into their 911 center. But they use the Nevo Anywhere kit just to reroute their 911 calls so they can continue operating and dispatching like they're used to. Just they're using the Nevo Anywhere kit instead.
Yeah. And we've had a number of counties around the country do similar type of things. This is for a scheduled power outage. We've had other agencies that have utilized it where there was construction going on in a nearby building, and just for safety reasons, they wanted to kind of move them out of that room. So they were able to set up with Nevo and operate on that system for a while. And then, once the construction day was over, they can go back to the PSAP and do that for a little bit. So it makes it very flexible, especially for scheduled events. Of course, it's always easier when they're scheduled. Makes it life a little easier, but
It does.
Yeah. All right, Indiana State Police.
Yeah, so you kind of hinted to this just a moment ago, but Indiana State Police, they're building a new post, and actually the post is getting built directly next to the current building. Well, while during construction, they had to put some pilings in, and the construction company didn't want anyone in their current building while they were doing this work. So the dispatchers had to evacuate the building. And so they actually, the state police has this command trailer. So they brought the command trailer up, set it up, got power to it, set up radios. And then we brought in Nevo Anywhere kit to help them with their 911 call delivery and kind of manage that piece of it. This is, again, a scheduled event, but it was only during the day. So our service center was flipping them back and forth During the day, they were all their 911 calls were going to Nevo, and then at night they were going back to their CPE equipment. And so it was a kind of unique situation. But this lasted a little over a week, if I remember right.
Yeah, and that's a good point to highlight, is that the Mevo kit is not necessarily an either or. You could be both and. So it can be a kind of a substitute for what's going on in the main 911 center, or it could be used in conjunction with the 911 center as a way for those two areas to communicate back and forth with each other. So it's very flexible in its application.
Yep.
So we had several counties around the country that used Mevo to be able to continue operations while they were cleaning, disinfecting the center. And of course, early on in Mevo, this was being done, several times a week. And then, and that kind of tapered off as the COVID started to kind of slow down a little bit. But having the phone set up in another room, then the center could move over, and some of them would do it for a couple hours or 4 hours or a whole shift, and allow a cleaning company to come in and completely disinfect the center, to keep that safe and make everyone feel comfortable. And then they could move right back into the center. So it was an easy and inexpensive way for them to set up what became a temporary backup center, mm-hmm. to be able to go in and get everything cleaned and continue operations without affecting service to the community.
Yeah. And one of the great things about the Nevo Anywhere kit is you don't really need a brick and mortar structure to have your backup center. You can actually set this up anywhere. You can set it up in a field under a tent. You could set it up, in your conference room and neighboring agency. You can do a lot with it that you just can't do with a hardened structure like brick and mortar backup centers.
Right. That's right. Makes it very flexible, and that's why it's called Nevo Anywhere, because you can use it anywhere. So it's self-contained, has its own power. So we've had agencies put it in the back of the pickup truck, drive it out into a field during a weather event, and be able to have live calls coming in and back and forth, and it's worked out well. Mm-hmm. So this is an instance where we were able to help formulate some call routing options, right, Shane?
Yeah, so Marion County, Indiana, one of the largest PSAPs, probably is the largest PSAP in the state of Indiana. Typically before they were appointing all of their calls, if they had to evacuate the center for some reason, to one particular PSAP, well, there's not a PSAP that borders them that can manage their call volume. And so they were looking for a different method of delivering 911 calls, especially they felt that this could be long-term with COVID. If they lost a major part of their staff, how are they going to manage call volumes with a reduced number of staff? So what we came up with is a distributed call, which basically we can take calls and send them to different PSAPs around you. So you can send them to, in this case, I think they selected 4 different PSAPs, but you could send one to one PSAP, then the next call to the next PSAP, and then the next call to the next PSAP, and then until you get to the end, and then you start that chain over again to the first, second, third, fourth, and then back to the first, second, third, fourth. And what that does is, let's say that you had 4 PSAPs and your call volume is 100 calls per hour, for example. Now that's only 1/4 of that, 25 calls going to each PSAP. Sometimes your partner PSAPs in your neighboring counties or neighboring agencies can handle that type of volume, but they can't handle the 100 per hour. But even though Marion County was kind of really special in the fact that they also shared radio systems and CAD systems and stuff like that with other neighboring PSAPs, which allowed them some to solve some of the other issues. There are other PSAPs that are considering, the call distribution, but they also have to consider, what is happening with that call when that partner PSAP grabs it, because they can't send it back to them, but they still have to be able to dispatch out those first responders. So, but Marion County had it all figured out, and we set that up for them. It took a couple days and some testing, and it was standing ready for them if they ever had to evacuate the center for a short term or a long term.
Right. Yes, and that's obviously for major events when call volumes spike. It's a great way to be able to distribute those calls. We had a number of agencies that utilized this type of round-robin call delivery in relation with the Nevo Anywhere kits. Some of the agencies to set up social distancing within the 911 center moved half of the answering positions into another room or another building, and then we set up the round-robin call delivery where the first call would be delivered to the 911 center, the second call would go to the backup center where the Mevo phones were, and the next call that came in back to the 911 center, the next one back to the remote facility, and back and forth. So it allowed them to continue operations as normal, but split those calls and get some distancing between the dispatchers. And there were a number of agencies that liked that idea and was able to do that. And again, at a low cost and high efficiency model that worked out very well for those time that they needed that.
Yep.
So another large center, Jefferson County, Alabama, and the Birmingham City, Birmingham 911, two good-sized centers. Together they have quite a large call volume, one of the largest in the state. And they back in the last spring were trying to figure out evacuation options. Of course, they always have plans, but they always want to improve on those. And with the Mevo phones, which they had sitting next to each answering position for disaster and backup recovery, if their primary answering system wasn't available, the 911 calls get delivered to the Mevo phone that sit next to the desk. So because they both had the Mevo phones and they were both on the same state network, we were able to program a bug out button on the phone, which would allow them to manually push their 911 calls, say from Jefferson County, over to Birmingham 911 Center, and vice versa. So Birmingham could push a button and their calls would be delivered to Jefferson County. What was very unique about this is that those calls were then transferred to the Mevo phones at the other location. So Jefferson County hits the bug out button, their calls begin then to ring at Birmingham 911 on their Mevo phones. So the regular answering position is still there taking calls on their primary call handling system. Sitting next to them was a dispatcher from Jefferson County taking their calls that were coming in on the Mevo phones. And then again, they could do that the reverse. And of course, in order to make this quick, as the staff was transferred, they were escorted, lights and sirens, by the sheriff's department. That helps to get them there a little quicker. They were able to test this. It worked great, and it allows them to be able to evacuate the building quickly without really giving any interruption to the calls that are coming in, and it was great to see them test that. You may have read about that. It was in the local newspaper there in Alabama, and so anyway, that was a great use of Mevo phones, a great use of call routing in the state of Alabama to get those calls distributed. Vigo County.
Yeah. So yeah, Vigo County, another scheduled event in which this didn't really involve the Nevo Anywhere kit, but it did involve their Mevo phone system, which is their backup system to their primary CPE. So they got new furniture coming in, and they needed to move their dispatchers out. So they had a training room right next to the dispatch center. So we set up Nevo phones in the training room for them, and so they actually had all their calls taken and processed over a Nevo phone in their training room until their furniture was delivered, installed, and then we moved them back over to their primary CPE. Really easy way to just if you had to move, rather than taking down your CPE equipment and then moving it and setting it back up, all it was is they took down the CPE equipment, put it in storage, got the new furniture in, and put it right back up and running again. So this is just another example of using Nevo for one of these scheduled events.
Yeah, and not just in this case, it was utilizing bringing in new furniture, which any of you that have done this before know can be a heavy lift. It's quite a bit to get things moved around, get that new furniture and get equipment installed again. But sometimes it could be just if there is scheduled maintenance on the primary call handling system that requires it to go offline. With the Nevo phones there, we're able to reroute calls to the Nevo phones while they do their maintenance, and then we can move them right back over. So it takes a lot of that pressure and stress and strain off of the dispatch center, knowing that they have another reliable option that sits right there to help them. So some other applications we talked about, the 911 command vehicle or a 911 trailer. I saw in some of the comments, I think Leah talked about fair, county fair, state fair, community events, festivals, and so on. Any place where you need to set up a remote command post. I know for sure agencies have, like Shane said, they might have a tent set up where you've got some personnel that are on site, say at the fair or at a sporting event. Could be a racetrack, could be an air show, could be any number of things, but where you're going to set up kind of a local on-site command post, set up the Nevo Anywhere kit there that has access back and forth to dispatch. Call comes in, and dispatch, if they know that they're at the fair or they're at this event, can transfer the calls directly to the Nevo kit that's on site, and they're able to take care of that situation, where people are on the ground, have eyes on the event, and of course weather related and so on, things that can be used for storm spotters, just to have people set up at different parts of the county, but you want to have access to dispatch over the phone without having to utilize the radio. That it's work for that. And then other types of major incidents where you just need to set up a command center that needs to be off site, needs to get set up quickly. The Nevo kit works great for that. I know, Shane, you have any other thoughts on applications?
Yeah, well, yeah, and I can think of Nevo being used multiple times. Like a Nevo Anywhere kit, for example. Even before COVID, agencies were utilizing it for I think we've used them for air shows. We've actually set up a unique instance where air show, all the calls were routed to that 911 center or that Nevo command center. And then, there's a lot of different events that different agencies have used them. It's any major event. It could be for the fire service. It could be for emergency management. It could be a police-related major incident. But it does just provide a simple or alternate means of communication between those on the scene, the commanders, or the staff on the scene to the dispatch center. Because, in major instances, a lot of times it's your comms that go down, so by having, a different method of communication other than just your radio, it just helps out. It just helps keeping everyone in communication and understanding what's happening.
Right. All right. Excellent. So, what we do with Nevo, we're trying to improve the state of any emergency, regardless of what it is. And many that we've talked about, scheduled non-emergency events, Nevo and working with InDigital as a partner is a great way to solve those problems and improve that state of any emergency. So we appreciate the time that you've had with us here this morning. We wanted to just here at the end just kind of highlight what's coming up next from InDigital. Later today at 5:30 after the greatness, Ricardo and Leah will be with Vicki Balunki and Lori Fourier to just kind of wrap up the day and talk about things that happened, and that should be they did a great job last year. I'm looking forward to watching them again this year. And then tomorrow morning, 8:45, our Vice President of Market Management, Caleb Branch, is going to talk about the use of dispatching from home. And this is something technology has been improving to allow this to be a possibility. Of course, there are a lot of policy questions around being able to dispatch from home that each agency is going to have to tackle. But from a technology perspective, it's available. And we had some agencies that utilized that last year. Caleb's going to lead a roundtable discussion about that tomorrow, so you won't want to miss that. And then following that, the next day on the 9th, 8:45 again, Kurt Wolfenberger, who's our Indiana, he's one of our Next Gen Core Services engineer, is going to talk about ransomware. And hopefully you've not been touched by ransomware, but most people know someone or certainly have heard of an event. Ransomware seems to be more and more prevalent, and it certainly is a target for public safety. And so Kurt's going to highlight ways that you can maybe help protect yourself. And if you are fallen victim to ransomware, what some agencies have done and how InDigital has kind of helped them to navigate that. So again, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it and appreciate all that you do, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys very much for coming on, and of course, as always, for being a Diamond sponsor of the conference, but for sharing this information, because I think there are a lot of different solutions out there, and this one especially, and maybe I'm a little biased because I helped work on some of it and train some of the dispatchers, but I think one of the best things is thinking back to when I was in dispatch. We didn't have a lot of money, and also when I very first started, it was a small police department, so we didn't have, a big old command center or anything, but something like this, we would be able to take in a suitcase and go wherever we needed to set up and have all that traffic end up coming over, and to be able to work it that way. And, to have a solution like this as well during this time, just such unprecedented time, that to be able to utilize something like this makes it even better if the center has to shut down, or you need to separate different people and have something to be able to use or even use from home. So excellent information. Thank you both very, very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, we are up and running. And we are heading over to the next session, and the next session is going to be Positivity Breeds Powerful Leaders. And I'm going to bring you all with me over here in just a moment. We'll see you in the next one.
See ya.